You're on Team Human, conscious intervention in the machine. A chance to lean into your incarnation, distinguish between abstract ideas and embodied experience, the propaganda processing in your head and the compassion metabolizing in your body. There's more than one kind of intelligence, but none of them are artificial. I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and I'm on Team Human. I was on the subway the other day. Someone across from me said, "Hey, you're the Kobe dryer sheets guy." Well, not exactly. I am the Kobe dryer sheets guy, or one of them, but it was actually a Team Human listener who was asking, why the heck are you hawking dryer sheets on Team Human? And it's weird. I was like, did you listen to the ad? And you'd know. I've been looking for a sponsor for like 10 years is the thing, and I couldn't find a sponsor that I could actually speak about honestly because they were doing awful things. And this guy, Tom, who makes Kobe dryer sheets, actually cares about the world. This is a product that's meant to be the first step in our reclaiming industry and consumerism for people and the environment and the earth. So these are 100% biodegradable, natural, environmentally soundly made dryer sheets, and the beginning of what I'm hoping is a consumer revolution against crap and plastic and evil and toward good. So I did a plant medicine ceremony not so long ago, and I remember saying something to the mushrooms like, "Here I am, what do you got?" And the mushrooms were like, "Oh, what do you got?" So I went humble, or tried to, saying something like, "Well, I just came for any insights you may have to offer me at this point in my journey." And the mushroom said, "Oh, you're an insight junkie. No insights for you." And then they just shut up. The rest of the experience was totally physical. It was painful, even. I just felt pain, kind of brokenhearted. Nothing to do about it necessarily, just metabolize it. No insight, no ideas, you're in pain. The world's in pain, be there for it, witness it. Don't have to rationalize it or spin it or reframe it. Don't have to make sense of it. And I thought, insights, as wonderful as they are, they're the booby prize. They're up there in the idea space where you can be right and someone else can be wrong, where there's cause and effect and guilt and blame and victim and perpetrator or even problem and solver. I have the answer. But being with it is where the work actually gets done. Now, I come from the theater, where we learn to imitate life by finding cause and effect relationships between things. That's what Aristotle and the Poetics was all about. The idea of a linear play, a tragedy, is that there's a reason for what's going on. The audience meets a character who has a flaw of some kind. They're too ambitious, too gullible, too curious, whatever. And the character makes a series of choices that put him, the tragic hero is almost always a guy, that put him in danger. And he brings the audience with him up the hill of danger and anxiety until he makes the final bad choice. Oh no! But this one, it comes with insight. He and we all see the way his bad choice derived from his essential intrinsic flaw. You were too ambitious, Macbeth. You were plagued by doubt, Hamlet. Oedipus, too hubristic. The catharsis and relief you get from a tragedy is that the downfall makes sense. It's sad, but the audience gets release from tension by seeing the perfect sense in what happened. It's the classic male orgasm curve, right? Tension, climax, relief. But it depends on that moment of insight where everything clicks into place. It feels inevitable. And that's the point. While the protagonist may go down in flames, the audience is released. The insight, the recognition, it frees us from the hero's downfall. And even in postmodern time travel pyrotechnics of today's movies, it's the same thing. In Fight Club, Brad Pitt and Ed Norton are the same person, of course. It could have only been that. The repression of his masculinity led to his explosion. And once I understood the mechanics of this structure, the 3-act movie structure, I rebelled against it. That's what I loved about the internet. I saw interactivity as a way to break that linear arc. Instead of watching some hero make sense on the screen, we'd make sense for ourselves, together, in a communal play space. And I got really into alternative narrative paths and structures. I saw it as a renaissance. And I got flown around the world to talk about this. I got a grant to go to New Zealand and talk about these ideas at the opening of a museum about the Maori, who are the original Aboriginal people of that region. And so I'm on a stage talking about the internet and this new narrativity to an audience of at least half Maori. And I'm honored and intimidated and excited. It felt magical. So I tried to lean into that. I was talking about how the TV screen had distanced us from drama, but that the computer screen could break the fourth wall and change our relationship to the story. With hypertext and links and pointing and clicking, we'd be able to break the stories, break through the propaganda and the programming, break the spell. And I explained that to experience what I meant, I wanted them to feel what it was like as I broke the fourth wall of the theater by stepping past the proscenium and instead just sitting on the apron of the stage. And just as I passed through the imaginary fourth wall, an alarm went off and the light started to flash. It was the fire alarm. My first response was shock and fear, and then it changed to disappointment that I hadn't gotten to finish my talk. But when we were outside, a lot of the Maori congratulated me with these knowing smiles. Everyone felt that the universe had made my point for me. Of course, I didn't think I'd moved the atoms in a way that made the fire alarm go off. I thought maybe the Maori did, or some combination of my concept and their powers. And in hindsight, it made sense, right? I broke the fourth wall and magic happened. And I told the story like that for years as evidence of something about the net and narrative and indigeneity. And I had made sense of the phenomenon with plot, just like the kinds of stories I was saying were dead. But what had really happened? From a bodily place, it was shock, horror, interruption. That's what I felt in the moment, right? The lesson I was supposed to take from that wasn't about empowerment so much as what actually happens when you break things. There's panic, confusion, alarm. Right? The world didn't celebrate the disruption of narrative. It went nuts. And my body knew that in the moment it happened. My name is Douglas Rushkoff, and I like smelling Kobe dryer sheets because they're like these essential oils. It's like going to a mushroom ceremony in a kind of a cool New Age retreat in Woodstock. That's the feeling of Kobe dryer sheets. They are at once, I'm sure, sanitary and good for your laundry, but they're also quite psychedelic. And when you're tripping, you don't want to worry about whether the things you're doing are like screwing up the planet or hurting labor or leading into giant landfills of crap. And you don't have to worry about that when you're tripping on these dryer sheets. So join me. There's two kinds of magic, or two ways of understanding magic. One is basically propaganda or hypnosis. You psych someone out so they do or believe what you say. Or you even do it to yourself. You make up a ritual that gives you the confidence or the subconscious intention to actually believe and do something. The other kind of magic, the sort I never really believed in, is the magic where your thoughts or your will somehow change physical reality, like magic. And I was trying to explain that difference to some students once in a propaganda course, like between doing magic on someone and simply psyching them out enough so that they believe magic's acting on them. The power of suggestion versus actual magic power. And I was in front of the class and I told the story about the alarm and how if I believed I had somehow set off the alarm itself, that would be the supernatural kind of magic. And while I was explaining all that, there was this fly buzzing around the room. It was maybe 20 feet away from me. And I said, it would be like if I took my fingers like a little gun and just shot the fly dead. And as I pretended to pull the trigger in my fingers, I kid you not, the fly fell like right out of the air onto the ground. And everybody freaked out. And we all went over and looked at the fly down on the floor. And it was just lying there, frozen, not moving. And we're just going, oh, fuck. He killed a fly with magic, right? But then it wriggled to its feet and kind of walked around a little, it shook itself off, and then flew up and right out the window. So the second time something totally magical happened in my life, it was as if to prove to me that the kind of real world, inexplicable physical magic I don't believe in is real. That the insight-related, propagandistic Jedi mind tricks and neurolinguistic programming are not the thing. That the only way to know the thing, what's actually going on here, is in the body. We're embodied, incarnated. We have to learn to listen to the cues rather than interpreting all the time or prematurely. Just feel them. They're more obvious to the body than any analysis. The alarm goes off. Right? Sometimes you see a person from a distance who just looks so right for you, perfect. But you get up close and you just don't feel it in your body. Maybe you're not repulsed, but you get nervous or off or you feel not good enough. Just trust your body and don't push it. Because sometimes you don't even see a person, but you feel something just right inside, and then behind you or next to you is your next great friend or lover or partner, or just someone passing through this incarnation with you, and that was the whole interaction this time out. Even in these stressful times, the body is where you feel the impact, and your body is where you have to metabolize it. I was talking on the show the other day about the way a modern authoritarian government would repress people, not by dragging everyone out to the gulag, but by using AI to identify potential agitators and then subject them to a bunch of tax audits. And someone last week sent me an article about a bunch of journalists who received unreasonably backdated tax penalties. And I had this moment of panic as I read the piece, like right in my gut, until I saw it was happening in Hong Kong and not here. And I'm not proud to say I was relieved or let myself be relieved by the distance. It's someone else's problem. I'm safe. But the knot in my stomach didn't really go away. And that's because the problem was still there. My interpretation or rationalization doesn't change the circumstance. There's one big global crackdown on independent journalists, and whether they're in Hong Kong or Brazil or Hungary, they're still our friends and part of the same network of organisms. They're us. If we do want to work through the trauma of hearing that our brothers and sisters in red states or blue states or good countries or bad countries are in trouble or pain, then we don't do that by thinking our way out of it. We do it by stopping and breathing and metabolizing it. That's more real than trying to find a way of brain farting it into an unrecognizable form. And if magic is real, the magic of love, intuition, what doulas do, shooting a fly out of the air or making a fire alarm go off, or even the kinds of magic that science is finally learning to accept, like ESP and retrocausality and morphogenesis and remote viewing and God knows what those unidentified anomalous phenomena are, if this stuff is real, or even just the somatic embodied connection between us all is real, then we owe it to one another to pause and process these things in our bodies, not just our heads. The object of the game is not to wriggle out of these experiences mentally, but to metabolize them somatically on behalf of ourselves and everyone else. It's in the body. At least you're here. It's the body. And each layer of media or technology, however enabling, it takes us away from that. Words replace feelings. Texts replace sensibilities. We have to represent things and abstract them from the complexity of embodied experiences. Emotions and sensibilities get reduced to definitions and preferences. Time becomes numbers. Love becomes conquest. Fertility becomes eugenics. In the abstracted landscape, there's no buffers. No embodiment in the feedback loop, just ideas and goals iterating into a future that doesn't include us or life itself. What do I got? That's what I got. What do you got? No, this is not an AI simulation, and you are not the output of a prompt. Your body is your portal. It's not the screen, not the VR goggles. AIs don't feel pain. They don't suffer. This is real. I mean, not me. I could be generator for all you know, but you. Your embodiment is your connection to the real story. And as long as you can resist the temptation to make too much sense of what is going on, you stand a chance of experiencing it while you're here.
Did you know laundry dryer sheets are actually plastic, and the first ingredient is crude oil? It's in your clothes, on your skin, and piling up in landfills. That's why we invented Cobi, spelled C-O-B-I. C-O for cotton and B-I for biodegradable. The first all-cotton, 100% biodegradable dryer sheet that works better than those toxic alternatives. No chemicals, no plastic. Just soft, static-free clothes that are safe for your family and the planet. Save 10% on your first order at CobiDryerSheets.com. That's CobiDryerSheets.com.
I'm Douglas Rushkoff, and you've been on Team Human, our last best hope for peeps.